Hey, yo, what's going on? This is Divine Thought, host of For All Matters podcast, and we have a very special guest today, EMillio EgBar. You've heard him on recent content collabs and everything. Today's going to be a little different. You know, he's got a new show to plug. We're going to talk about that and, you know, try to keep things focused on what's going on with him, what's new, and what's going on with the music business, the entertainment business, the content game. So, yo, what's good with you, EMillio? What's happening?
Yeah. What's up, man? What's good with you?
Chilling. Different format, like, you know what I mean, than what we used to do when we doing these, but figure we'd just try this format out for a minute because, you know, I heard that you had a new podcast, like, you know, and it just, one of the things that people don't do in this game is like return favors, right? And when you had, not enough. That doesn't happen enough. You know, I come from a broadcasting background, like, you know, as you're well aware of, working in radio and all of that. And for a long time, like, you know what I mean? I would come out with different songs as an artist and different things. And because of what I was talking about content-wise in the song or whatever, DJs couldn't play the song. People I knew, right? Now the song, 9-minute song, so I can kind of get it, right?
I know exactly the song you're referencing.
I had a 9-minute song I put out, right? And it was after one of my things that I had going on with a label and with Interscope. I was kind of mad at them, right? So it was after I got blacklisted by them and I made the song. I was like, I'm real proud of it, right? Like, you know, and I was asking all of my friends and broadcasting to play it. They're like, man, I can't play it. Like, you know, time went by, long time went by. First person to ever play it was you. So shout out to you for that.
No doubt,
my 5-minute song, The Portrait, finally got played. And then, which kind of helped me get into the content game in general, because then Kawan played it and one thing led to another. I started doing content, like, you know, the beat goes in for his show, the mixtape show, and then, like, you know, that led into me being on NGI radio, which led me into being with doing this podcast here. So I appreciate all of that, man. So, you know.
Oh, no doubt, man. Yo, like, I definitely appreciated the song, you know, listening to it and everything, because, you know, in this era, you know, the last 9-minute song or the last 9-minute plus song I heard was from Joe Budden at the time when he dropped Give Me 10 Minutes. I remember that song, you know, so like a lot of people, you know, they wasn't really familiar with the whole, you know, 10-minute format. So when I first heard it, and the fact that you were just spitting, you know, on and on without no pauses, no breaks in between, no hook, no chorus, no bridge or anything, I'm like, yo, this dude is really going in. So it's like, you know what, it's only right. You know what I mean? And this was at the time when I had, like, you know, a 2-hour format with my show. For those who remember Ancient History, the show used to be, you know, 2 hours. So I was like, you know, I could squeeze that in there. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely a dope song and it's got a message on top of that. Right. You know, how you get like the freestyles where people spitting like 100 bars, but it'd be about a bunch of bullshit or whatever, right? So, you know, it was something that had a message behind it. So I was like, yo, it was only right that I put this out there. Then boom, it's been history ever since, man.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, you know, a lot of people don't understand that when you look out for somebody like that, you might forge a professional relationship or friendship that can go forward, like, you know, and then people can build and grow from that kind of thing, man, especially in this business and especially in the independent game, man. And right now, the music business is changing up. So first, I think most people know you from the Nonstop radio show. Like, you know, shout out to that show. That show's long running now. How long you been doing that show now?
The Nonstop radio show, we actually launched our very first episode June 1st, 2016. I remember the day like it was yesterday, because I remember before even, you know, pushing, you know, the first link to tweet it out, because I was active mostly on Twitter back then. I had Instagram and all that other stuff, but my main way of, you know, networking with people and putting it out there was via Twitter. So, like, I remember then, and I just remember like maybe a half hour before the show started, I was so fucking nervous that I actually prayed before the beginning of the show. That's how nervous I was. I was like, yo, because like I'm doing it in honor of, you know, a close friend of mine that, I considered family, and I named it after him. The show itself is named after a close friend of mine that got murdered, a few years ago. So I wanted to honor him in some kind of way whatsoever. So, we launched it as the Nonstop Radio show and everything. And it's just like, just the self-imposed pressure of wanting to do, so good, not only for the sake of, my name being stamped on something, but for the sake that his name was being stamped on something to carry his legacy. I just wanted to make sure that, it got the response that I felt as though it deserved. So like, June 1st, 2016 was the very first time. And it just, we just been rocking ever since then. Bit of inconsistencies from time to time, because of personal and professional differences in schedule and stuff that I had to overcome throughout the time. But, we still here, so it's just been a blessing to be here and still being able to do this for as long as we have and have some sort of longevity in this situation as far as, like being a online platform for, independent artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The thing I respect most about your platform is you'll have the occasional pioneer, the occasional legend on and give them that format, that spot or whatever. But for the most part, your platform is a place where independent artists can showcase their talents, right? And that's something that, and it's not no politics. That's what was different for me when I sent you the track. It was like, I wasn't sure if it was, and honestly, just to be completely 100% real, I come from broadcasting and I didn't know too much about digital, shows like that, online platforms and everything. I knew about internet radio, of course, but I didn't know the whole digital music platform format and everything. And I actually thought that you worked for FM, you know what I mean? Like that's how, and cause the way that you carried yourself, like the cadence and everything, I couldn't tell the difference. And I even had people that worked in FM for years and I let them hear your show and they was like, what station he work for? Like, what is he in the Bronx? You know what I mean? They recognized the accent, but there was like Harlem, like Bronx, something like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, I was like, nah, I mean, actually this is like an online platform. And it was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? It's a place where independent artists, and I feel like some independent artists don't appreciate a lot of platforms like yourself that showcase them. They don't know the benefit that you guys are bringing to them. They feel like, a lot of these other, what we would call mainstream, even though I don't like using that term, like mainstream platforms and such, they want to get their stuff featured on these mainstream platforms. And they get all hyped and everything when that happens, but they don't understand that a lot of times, you got to start out in a certain place. And not to mention these mainstream platforms, they don't really respect the grind of an independent artist. They don't just respect the fact that you make a good song and on the strength of making a good song, then you get played. That's what I respect about what you do. You know what I mean? And it was a fresh perspective to see that based on talent, because that's the way it used to be in the business, and especially in broadcasting, it changed. FM radio changed a lot, but
for real,
that's how it used to be, and that's what I respected about your platform, man. Where you could just
I appreciate that,
be talented, and then actually get a spot on the show and get showcased and everything like that. So there's been some people that just over the past few years that I've witnessed that have been on your show and then actually gone places too,
Yeah, that's always one of the most fulfilling moments is when we've had artists that have been on the show and to see them go on to bigger and better things. At one point it came to a point where it was like, damn, people move on and then they forget about you. But this is at the end of the day, it's the revolving door. I used to talk to you about. I was like, what? Sometimes I feel underappreciated, but then it's it's the revolving door. At the end of the day, you got to look at a platform such as myself as a launch pad for some of these people's careers. You know what I'm saying? Because when I first started the show, I had the mindset of the old Stretch and Bobbito show. How they were significant to a lot of artists out there, you know, and helping them get their start in radio, and they became, you know, big time people like Stretch and Bobbito. Like a lot of people don't understand, like they played a significant part in helping, you know, Wu-Tang get off the ground. You know what I'm saying? Because they was one of the first peoples to play, you know, Protect Your Neck. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that song was like, what, about a good 5 minutes? And there was no hook or anything like that. And they're just going on, just a collective bunch of 9 MCs just going in. And they was the first ones to play that record. So, you know, like, seeing how many people, you know, careers was launched off of a particular platform like that, that's what I had. That's the vision that I had in mind when I formed the Nonstop Radio Show. And a funny story to give you, you know, especially to people out there who may not know the back history of the Nonstop Radio Show. See, the name itself, like I said earlier, stems from the fact that I wanted to name something after, you know, my friend that was murdered and everything, as a way to honor his legacy and his memory, to keep things going, because he was a hip hop artist. And he, you know, that was his dream of becoming, you know, big in the music business. But the grassroots of the Nonstop Radio Show actually began in 2013 back in Harlem. A friend of mine, me and, you know, a couple of friends of mine collectively, Jeopardy and T-Rock, may he rest in peace, we started Too Much Radio. And we had that same concept in mind, from wanting to, you know, create a platform not only to showcase the music and stuff that we was putting out, but we also wanted to provide a platform for independent artists, because we seen the landscape of the way radio was being conducted at that time. And it's like, I felt like, you know, the playing field wasn't level enough for independent artists out here that was actually doing something. So, you know, we wanted to form a platform to not only help showcase us, but to help showcase other artists as well. So, like, you know, we took that mindset and we created a formula, and we, you know, we knocked out like 7 episodes. You know, it was growing a little bit of a buzz, but it never really like materialized into anything. But I felt as though that was something that I wanted to keep carrying on. So, like, I took ideas from what we had back in them days when we were starting, and then, you know, I took 2 years to actually plan it, from 2013 to 2015. I actually was planning, you know, on how I want to format a new show and everything. And it's just, you know, at the end, 2016 was just, you know, like working out all the little final points and everything, and then just coming up with a song. And then when my man's mother gave me the blessing to use his name and everything, I was like, boom, there it is. So we could just go ahead and rock with this one. And it's grown to the platform it's become, you know. And then we had that little hiatus we went on for a while, because, you know, like certain situations that was going on personally with me that, you know, that took precedent over everything else that I had going on. And, you know, we kind of in like get back mode, trying to rebuild what was there once before. But like you said, like, we don't want to like shun, you know, those who have been established and been there before, but this platform is more so for the people that, you know, are going to be tomorrow's stars, you know, for people that have talent but may not have that outlet to be heard, you know, like streaming platforms like SoundCloud and Hawkshare and those type of platforms can only take you but so far. And I feel as though, like, you know, this is a significant part for people out there. See, a lot of them want to just jump straight to the big leagues. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is kind of like, you know, the minor leagues somewhat. You know what I'm saying? Like, give you a place to get yourself ready for the big boys when you go into the Hot 97s, the Power 105s, and the Power 99s, and all the other major stations that's out there. You know, you want to have yourself together, because I've done interviews with people that, you know, it's like, damn, like, why are you even doing this? Because you don't even feel ready doing this. Yeah. So, you know, like, we try to give that platform for people to kind of warm up. And I told people, and you tell people, like, if you do it correctly, it can be beneficial for you if you know how to, you know, strategize with it, you know. And it's like a lot of people tend to overlook that because they think when they step up to the plate for the first time, they're going to hit a home run. That's not always the case. Sometimes you got to use this stuff like here, like, to get your, you know, your batting practice out there and, you know, strategize that big move. And sometimes, like, you could take like artists like Cardi B, who blew up off of, you know, utilizing platforms like this in order to help build up bars, and then it actually it carried over to other platforms where she started making appearances on Love and Hip Hop. Then once she got on Love and Hip Hop, that was able for her to showcase her music even more, and now look where she's at now. And she even says even part of her story and part of her grind back when she was on the come up was actually going to little small radio shows like this and going to other platforms where the person may have had maybe a couple hundred in their audience listening weekly or whatever the case may be, but she took it and she utilized that to the best of her ability, and it turned into a lucrative career for her, you know what I mean? So it's all the way you do things.
Yeah, you have to finesse it. There's a lot of artists that don't understand when you do shows, even smaller shows or whatever, you can put that in your EPK, and that's proof that you've been on radio shows before, that you've been getting out there, and you can take snippets of the interviews and everything like that. And it's part of showcasing yourself as an artist isn't just showcasing your music. It's showcasing you. It's showcasing the whole package, what you can do, how confident you are speaking, how confident you are, just doing any kind of media whatsoever. And when a label, if a big label is an artist's goal, which I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do, but in my opinion, steer clear of big labels. Just from my own experience, you know what I mean? Just from my own experience, but we're in a different day and time than when I started. So, I had no choice but to try to seek a major label when I started. And I want to say another important thing about platforms like yourself is it creates a platform for the artists of tomorrow, but it also creates a platform kind of I would just call it something like the big three, right? Where somebody like me who missed my opportunity for politics in the game, right? A lot of people who were shunned by the executives in the business and shunned by the politics and everything else. We might have signed some bad contracts or whatever, and now we're a little older in the game, but we have some material that never saw the light of day. That's a good place to feel like you've been heard now, right? So that's
absolutely,
that's another thing that I felt good about, because it's okay, yeah, now the Portrait, that was kind of the cap on my career. I would say that was the cap on. I had already recorded albums and mixtapes before I ended up making that song. That was kind of my send-off, right? But I felt like it got heard, right? And then when that happened, I had a few other shows that heard it played on yours, and then they played it, and I'm it's kind of vindication, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of people like us that got caught up in bad record deals. We didn't get the credit that we might have felt like we deserved, and it opens up a lane for that too. So but for the newer artists, I would say, yeah, man, get on shows like what you have, and then be able to finesse it in a way where now you're showcasing yourself, especially in these days and times. You know it as well as I do. You can't just be an artist. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You gotta
have a niche. yeah, definitely.
So, on top of the radio show that you got going on, what, just so people know, where's that at? Time, date, network, that kind of thing.
Oh, well, for people that want to check out past and present episodes of the Nonstop Radio Show, as it's called, you can check it out on SoundCloud. The actual link is soundcloud.com/nonstop-radio-show. You can follow me on Twitter at Nonstop Radio 212, or my personal Twitter at the EMillio EgBar, to, find links and everything. And also you can check us out live every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the newly relaunched Kawan J Radio Network. And I say relaunched because DJ Kawan had a radio station once before, but he just decided to come back out and relaunch, the network that he has now. So it's now under the umbrella of Kawan J Radio. So that's where you can go to check us out live every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or you can catch us Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock as well on Big Shot Radio, which is available on TuneIn. And you can also check us out Saturday afternoons at 12 noon on Miami's TheRadio.com. And that's spelled THA radio and .com, of course, so that's where you can check us out.
Word up. And Kawan J Radio, also, he's just launched a platform called KawanJmedia.com. And I actually might be writing some blogs for it soon and everything. He already posted that article I recently did. So that's going to be a place where I think he said he's going to be posting a lot of the content and a lot of different things associated with some of the shows that he has on his network, which is good because then it showcases like artists and it also showcases people like me and you that actually have the shows and everything like that. I think there's going to be some original content posted there soon, so definitely go and check that out. Now, when I had just recently heard that you have a new podcast out, I went and I checked it out, and man, like, you know what I mean? It's definitely a good transition from doing the music part where you're like, an on-air personality to hosting your own podcast. But for those of us who don't know the name of the podcast and everything like that and what it's about, like, just let us know what's going on with it.
Oh, yeah. The podcast itself is called EMillio's Memoirs, and that's something that I created, a while ago, but I finally just, aired like the first 2 episodes because I was going through the notion of trying to figure out exactly what it is that I wanted to name it and what the podcast wanted to be about and everything because, you have a lot of different choices or selections, I should say, for podcast content, and it was like, I wanted to form a podcast myself to give an additional platform to people so they can actually hear my thoughts and opinions, the way I feel about current situations and other events that's happening in and around our communities, not only within the U.S., but also around the world. Wanted to be able to touch and speak on various situations and topics in a sort of like an unbiased kind of setting, you know what I'm saying? Because like on the radio, you can't really talk as much as you would like to about current events, because people's not there to listen to you get on your soapbox and everything. They more so want to hear you, playing music. They want to hear the new drinks or whatever, what's hot right now and everything. So they don't want to really listen to a whole spiel about, current event situations. So, for the people that have been wanting to hear my thoughts on various situations, I decided to create a platform so that way you have that space to go listen to me, talk about things that I feel as though is important or just things that I just want to, just speak on, like a lot of people, they hear me with you and everything doing collabs and all that stuff like that, but they never really hear me do a podcast or really speak independently on my own and everything. So, I figured like now was the time because, especially with everything that's going on. And also just the fact that, everybody and their mother nowadays has a podcast. Like, years ago we used to joke like, everybody and their mother want to be rappers now. Everybody and their mother want to be podcasters. So yeah, I figured it was as good a time as any to, go ahead and launch this platform now while I had the opportunity rather than just sitting around on the idea trying to perfect it. And then, before long, the podcasting, era is a fad and then nobody wants to really pay attention to podcasts. So I figured I'd get in there.
Yeah. And I think that's a good idea for anybody who's an artist, anybody, don't matter what genre, don't matter anything, anybody who has a radio show, anybody who's doing anything. I feel like, because people want to, like you said, when they're listening to the nonstop radio show, they know you from that, but they don't really know you, right? Like they feel like they know you from being the on-air personality, but then when they feel like they get to know you when it's a long form content kind of situation, and then they get to hear your views and share experiences with you as you go forward. Like, you know what I mean? And I think one thing does feed the other. Like, I'm trying to tell a lot of people that nowadays. Like, I'm still working with artists and I'm telling them, like, you know, if you can do a podcast, you should do it right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? If you can do any kind of content, get people to feel like they get to know you. I mean, that's where we're at right now. People really do consume content, especially post-reset where we're at right now with the pandemic and everything. I feel like, you know, digital content is at an all-time high. So it's one of them situations where it's one of the best times to launch a podcast, in my opinion. And
yeah, definitely.
And a lot of people, like, you know, they want to chase the bag, or they feel like they want to chase the bag. And really, it's not a bag. It's a mirage. They feel like if they get picked up by iHeartMedia or whatever, if their podcast gets picked up by one of them big networks, that they actually did something. Let me tell you something. You start saying something out of the box a little bit here and there, then they gonna kick your ass the fuck off.
I mean, but let's keep it all the way real for the listeners right now. You know, I throw a couple of facts at you. You know, yes, podcasting is one of the top 5 means of making a revenue or an income as of right now. As a content creator, being a podcast host or a creator of a podcast can make you some money, but at the same time, it's not going to make you long-term money. You know, like you hear people saying, oh, well, what about Joe Rogan and all that kind of stuff? You got to understand there's different levels to this, you know? So like people that start off in podcasting, you know, you can understand that a lot of people use podcasts as a way to market their businesses. So that's where you see a lot of the monetization come from people that actually do make a living off of their podcasts. It's not because of the podcast itself. It's because of the endorsements. It's because of the other things that they got associated with that podcast that helps land them the money, you know, because like you can load up your podcast on various sites and it will stream those to like, you know, things like Apple Podcasts and Anchor and Spotify and all these other different platforms. But that doesn't mean that you achieved anything. You can even go, I seen it the other day, I was watching some YouTube videos about podcasting and everything, and the guy showed you just how easy it is to get your podcast on iHeart. So it's not like no like crowning accomplishment to be able to walk around and say you got your, you know, a podcast that's on iHeart. Okay, good. That just means that you got accepted. That doesn't mean that you made anything. You know what I'm saying? There's people that are very successful podcasting without the backing of an iHeart or Spotify or any of those other streaming platforms that allow them to be heard. You know, it's just all about how the way you decide to market your approach and how the way your strategy is business-wise going forward to help you get your podcast out there to a point where it can be somewhat lucrative to bring you a couple of dollars on the side, as you know, in addition to what else you have going on. So it's just all about the way you monetize your content that helps you get there, you know?
Yeah, and definitely, you know, just like we used to say, as you just touched on, not everybody is an artist. I hate to be the dick, man, but not everybody is a podcaster either. Not everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, should be creating content. So like, you know, what I would suggest is, you know, try to find your niche, do a few episodes and see if that's really what you want to do. See if that's really what you feel as though that you're good at. See if what you're doing is just copying off of what other people are doing or whatever. Because like what you touched on with Joe Rogan, man, like, you know, Joe Rogan didn't start out on a major, you know, Spotify or one of them kind of things. He started out just in his fucking mansion that he had from all the money from Hollywood and UFC, and he was smoking weed and doing all types of nonsense. And I'm not a Joe Rogan fan. I'm not, you know, it's no slander, but I wasn't a big fan of his podcast to begin with. But he was just on there fucking around. It just happened to be that his following grew. He didn't need Spotify. He was making the Forbes list without Spotify. Then Spotify paid him $100 million or whatever, and now he's owned by Spotify. There's a reason why he did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was a point I was going to bring up. See, everybody wants to be Joe Rogan, and I can understand that because, you know, successful, $100 million is nothing to sneeze at. So I'm not mad at anybody that want to kind of emulate him, but at the same time, when you emulating somebody else, that takes away from you being who you are. See, people listen to Joe Rogan because he's Joe Rogan. Just like people listen to Joe Biden because he's Joe Biden, or anybody else that starts a podcast. They listen to them not because they're trying to emulate other people. They're being who they are. They like Mike Tyson, for example. Mike Tyson be on his show smoking weed. He's just showing you who he is when he's not in the ring. He's Mike Tyson, and he's saying he's smoking weed. He's having a conversation about topics that interest him, and that's how his podcast is so popular. You know, people want to be something that they're not. And that's what causes a lot of people where you see this sort of log jam, not only just in podcasting and content creation, but also in radio shows like what we do, and also in the music business. Everybody wants to copy that blueprint for that person's success instead of carving out your own niche. You know, so like it goes back to what you were saying earlier. You know, you got to find your own niche. You know, like I'll watch various podcasts, you know, and a couple of them that I like thus far, you know, and I'm going to give them a plug. You know, you got the Bet David podcast on the Valuetainment channel on YouTube, and you got Earn Your Leisure, which is another podcast that I like to, you know, watch, you know, with Rashad and Troy. And they basically telling, you know, showing people how to, you know, get money and to manage their finances and stuff like that. So, you know, that's a good podcast for a lot of people to watch. And, you know, if they want to learn certain things, but at the same time, see, they got so popular because they found their niche. These people are speaking on things that they are professionals in and they're considered experts in. And the information that they're sharing helps people to better themselves, like, you know, life-wise and everything like that. So, you know, especially at a time right now when people aren't working and the stock market is the hot commodity right now for people to make money because people aren't working and not able to get out here and get a job, and they're looking for other streams of income because they can't go back to work right now and everything. So, you know, these particular podcasts, they mean something to people right now because it's helping people to navigate the stock market that never even been in the stock market before, or find other ways to get a hustle going so that way they don't have to rely or depend on a 9-to-5. See, that's their niche. A lot of people fail to realize, see, Joe Rogan, he came into podcasting already a rich man from his other endeavors before he started getting into podcasting, and all that just translated over because his following came over from that. And then throughout the course of time, he grew his listeners because he wasn't afraid to ask the dumb question. You know what I'm saying? What people will consider the dumb question. So, you know, his podcast grew in significance and he became the number one podcast. And I remember before that, it was Rush Limbaugh that had the number one podcast in the world. May he rest in peace. But, you know, a lot of these people came over doing what they was doing. See, if Joe Rogan was just a person like me, you, and anybody else that started podcasting, he probably wouldn't be as big as he is, but people would probably still listen to him for the fact that he is who he is. See, a lot of people out there, they don't take that into consideration, and they just want to, oh, he's a successful one right now. He got the number one podcast in the world. I want that Joe Rogan sound. That's what I hear a lot of. So it's like, you know, people got to understand, you just got to find your niche and you got to find what works for you and then grow it from there. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to emulate who else is out there doing whatever, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of that Joe Rogan sound, let me just explain it to people right now. What Joe Rogan sound like is, damn, I can't say this, I can't say that. You know what I mean? 'Cause, you know, he didn't run into that problem until he was owned by Spotify. Like you said, he wasn't scared to say the dumb thing, and that's what got, like, you know, him sitting there smoking weed, talking stupid and all of that. That's what got the attention to him and everything, right? And then he would be doing all of the tomfoolery and all of that with his guests, but he don't do that now. He can't do that now because he's owned by Spotify. So everything you loved him for, not me, but
he's watered down now.
Yeah, everything that made him what he is to get to the bag. Now that he's got the bag, he's owned. You know what I mean? So
people out here trying to chase that bag. Yeah, people out here chasing that bag, and once you get it, you gotta understand there's a lot of stipulations that come along with it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it goes back to the, you know, with me and my radio show. You know, when I first started out, and you know, the popularity was there. You know, people couldn't tell the difference between us, whether we was a in the basement kind of radio show from a big boy radio show. So people used to think that we was really a real FM show. So like, I used to get people fielding me offers, and of course that came along with the price. And I was like, no. Like, even people that was close to me then at that time was saying, yo, why don't you sell it, this, that, and the third, and you can sell that off and then you can come back and make another one if you want to. I'm like, no, because the pride and ownership means more to me than getting that bag. If the bag is going to be there, it's going to be there. So eventually I'll work towards that. But at the same time, how does that feel to me? I'm selling on something that, is the namesake of a friend of mine that was killed. So how does that look? At the end of the day, yeah, it'd be nice to capitalize off of that, but to take something that you own and be able to grow it to an exponential money or whatever the case may be without any kind of major backing or some kind of financial, support that you're getting from an investor or a sponsor or whatever the case may be, to me, that means more to me than going out there and trying to appease as many people, being a carbon copy of somebody else, hoping to get a bag. And then once I get that bag, now I'm a slave to that contract. So therefore, I can't be the same person I was. I can't do the same thing. Like, look at Drink Champs, for instance. When Drink Champs first got started at the beginning, Drink Champs was the shit. I remember I used to watch Drink Champs faithfully. And then once they got that Revolt deal, no knock on Nori, because, you got to get your money how you got to get it. But once he got, signed with Revolt and everything like that, it's like the quality of the content kind of went down a little bit. So it's like, it's not the same platform now that it was when it first got started. It's not as raw and uncut as it used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
and even Nori, and shout out to Nori, man. I got respect for him. Like, but at the end of the day, like, I was a little mad at him because he had an episode coming out with this rapper named Russ, right? And he's this new age type of rapper, like, you know what I mean? He's one of them industry plants that came out of nowhere, completely 100% backed by industry executives, like, you know what I'm saying? Not really good at the art form that he's, whatever. Like, but Nori called him a legend. And I happen to take offense to that because Nori knows better, right? He's from my era. Nori's from my era, man. Like, you know what I mean? I remember trying to get a record deal and I was competing with him. So, like, at the end of the day, I know he knows better, right? And he called Russ a legend, and I took offense to it, and I had mentioned it online, right? And then Nori hit me back, which made a whole 100,000 people hit me back because Nori said something or whatever, like, you know what I mean? But he was like, who are we to say that Russ isn't a legend just because we're from a certain era and all of that, man? I'm like, no, Nori, I don't agree, man. You know that you don't really mean that Russ is some type of legend.
He's being politically correct.
Yeah, you don't. But, like, you're right. That show was great before it got taken over by Revolt and all of that. And then before you know it, all of the, what you love that show for turned into something else. Now he's having on people like Russ and everything else. And it was like, nah, man. Then I stopped watching.
As a platform, I've had, my share of guests that had, a name. I want to say A-list because they're definitely not A-list anymore. Maybe back in them days, if I would have got, a platform like mine, if I would have gotten, say, like a Little Flip or, Positive K during their heydays or whatever, when their name was really out there, making noise or whatever the case may be, we would have had a whole different dynamic to our show. So I'm not sneezing at the, the quality of guests that I gotten on my show and everything, but the fact that, my show is owned solely by me, that means I can bring on whoever I want to. So therefore, if I don't like this particular person, I don't have to have you on my show. So these people are being squeezed into a situation that they may not like a certain situation, but because now they got this bag, they don't want to fuck up their situation, because just like as they give it to them, they can also take that shit away. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, they don't want to do nothing to fuck that up. I don't care how successful Joe Rogan is, and not to say nothing bad about him, because I'm not hating at all, but I don't care how successful he is. Without that Spotify deal, nobody wanted to give up $100 million. So at the end of the day, he's not going to just, I got the money, fuck that, I'm just still gonna do what I want. Nah, he gotta play ball to a certain extent. I know you don't really like that term either, but that's the best way I can describe it for those out there that are listening that don't quite understand exactly what it is that I'm trying to articulate. But you get it.
No, I'm glad you said that, like the playing ball thing, because right now I have people that I'm close friends with, man, like DJs that been on the air 35 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, like, you know what I mean? They know the game and everything. And now that we're going from the switch from FM over to digital and from, like, you know, terrestrial radio to more of a digital platform streaming kind of thing and all of that. Like, you know what I mean? Now they're bringing their platforms over there, and a lot of people are asking me, okay, so if you know these people and everything like that, why isn't your podcast on their networks? Why isn't your podcast? Why aren't you on some of the, like the people that you know, why aren't you on their networks and everything? Why are you on Kawan J Radio, like, you know, and Odyssey Network and all of that, but not on these platforms? And just plain out, these are still my peoples, but they told me, like, if you come over here, you got to play ball to a certain extent because they're still, quote, playing ball. And the reason why I don't do that is because playing ball, especially in the entertainment business, in life in general, but in the entertainment business, the goalposts are always moving on what
definitely
playing ball means, right? So, like, you know, 1 minute you think playing ball means this, by the next week, you know, playing ball means that you're, like, you know, covering cat videos on YouTube, like, you know what I mean? And it's just, it can get that crazy. So, like, you know, I want the creative freedom that I know that I can bring, like, you know, you got to be yourself. There's no way that you can be yourself when you're controlled. I'm working with an artist right now, and she's got her own platform and everything. And like, you know, she's had some investment opportunities that came over to her, and she's feeling pressured to take them. And I'm trying to give her the advice, like, look, man, you got to relax right now and just do what you got to do. Be yourself. That will bring, in the long run, it's more of a patience game, right? Like, Joe Rogan, he could have got that 100 mil. It might have took him a few more years, right? But he sped the process up by taking the bag. But when you do that, you're sacrificing. So, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta give up something.
Yeah, and that's where we're at right now. It's a fucked up part of the business, but it's a cold business.
A lot of things people also fail to realize, as, you know, taking it back to that term, business. See, people fail to understand that before Joe Rogan was really a household name in the podcast world, Joe Rogan was in other, you know, things that he had going on. You know, he was doing, you know, UFC and stand-up comedy and stuff like that. So he knows people. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like he just was somebody that came out of nowhere. He had money before all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? He had different ventures that he was a part of. So he knows how to operate within the business. So I'm pretty sure when Spotify came knocking on his door and any other platform that came working on his door, I'm pretty sure he was able to sit down and negotiate his worth to an extent where he was able to walk away with that $100 million. Now, see, that's the problem right there. See, you got people out here that's willing to sell out for peanuts, thinking that, you know, it's an opportunity, thinking that there's going to be a bigger opportunity in the long run. No, that's where my stance came from in the beginning with the nonstop radio shows, because I know the worth of the show. I know the show is a pretty good show. I'm not saying that to pat myself on my back or blow smoke up my own ass, no homo, but at the, you know, let me rephrase that. Let me throw that back for nobody out there. Pause. You know, let me say that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I know the worth of the show. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I don't want people to feel like, you know, this is just something I'm just doing this as a hobby. No, I have a vision for it, even though I haven't obtained that vision yet, but things are starting to slowly, you know, round themselves out to the way I see things happening. But at the end of the day, it's going to take a little bit longer because I don't have that same financial backing as some other people may have. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people out there, they just want to jump the gun because they see what they believe is an opportunity and think that's the best opportunity. The next thing you know, boom, you're stuck in a situation where it may take you years to get out of, like with record deals, for instance. And you know about that. Like, a lot of people jump at the first offer that comes across their table instead of knowing their worth, knowing their value. You know, see, a lot of people feel as though like they just bring a couple of bars or whatever to the table, and boom, next thing you know, I got this deal. I'm moving my moms out the hood. I'm getting all these fly cars. I'm taking my peoples along with me, this, that, and the third. But did you read the fine print? Are you looking at those obligations you have to fulfill within that contract? See, you put out that one hot album, now you got an obligation also within your contract stipulations where you got to fulfill the next 4 albums. And if you don't get that next 4 albums, if you don't reach that mark, in which a lot of artists tend to not do, they get stuck in those bad contracts, and the next thing you know, they put up on the shelf and they can't make another album or whatever the case may be. Yep. The same thing applies to this. Like, if I give up my freedoms by signing a deal because I want that bigger financial backing, then I won't have the freedom to be able to play the independent artists that I play. I won't be able to say the things that I say. I won't be able to do the things that I do because of the fact that people out there will feel like, well, the people that are, I should say, my handlers at that point, if they don't fit with their agenda is or fit what they want done because they are putting the money behind me, then it's a no-go no matter how I feel about it. You know, and that's what we see a lot now with radio today. Like, radio back in the days, like, that's where we used to run the hit or of the hot shit. Besides the mixtapes, we used to run to the radio. So back in them days, the radio was significant because we used to hear the radio and then we used to hear the hot shit because this is what we was being told was the hot shit. Nowadays, like, we hear this shit and it's not hot, but they're under that stipulation because they're working with, you know, talent agencies and stuff like that. They have the ink on the paper saying that they got to play this regardless of how they feel. And even though they know it's not hot, they still got to play it anyway because they're getting paid to play it. So at the end of the day, that's just the nature of the business. So you just got to know how the way to move and just know your value.
Yeah. That's actually a good segue because, you know, some of the other things I wanted to talk about before we wrapped it up was, you know, the whole content game, radio game, everything like that is changing in general. One of the media giants, radio giants is iHeart. And I'm telling people, ever since when I did the Beat Goes In, I was right ahead of time, way ahead of time and everything like that with my music business predictions and different things like that. It's only because I've had 20 plus years in the game, man, and I can see what's happening. Like, I know how these execs move and I can see what iHeart is trying to do. They have been trying to sell off that sinking ship for a long time now, and they're really trying to get it to Spotify. I know they just did a JV with Tidal and everything. Me and you was talking about that a little while ago off the record, but like, you know what I mean? I know they just did the JV thing with them. They also did another JV deal with Jonathan Glickman, Glickmania Media, ridiculous name.
Yeah, really
Glickmania
ridiculous.
Media. Yeah, but it's a big like, you know, it's a big firm to actually get into the podcasting even deeper, and that's what iHeart's really trying to do. They're really, really, really trying to get into that podcast, like, you know, area. And like we was talking about Joe Budden, he's the one who made that possible. Yeah. And I give Joe Budden a lot of bullshit because I don't really fucks with him like that.
Yeah, but you gotta give him his flowers though on that one.
Yeah, no, like, as an artist, I still to this day, I get shit for this part too, because I think he's probably top 5 like lyrical artists like in my era. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
Whenever I would hear him rapping, dog, I would have to step my bars up. Like, you know what I mean?
I was about to say, like, I don't disagree with you with that at all, because I come from that era too where I heard Joe Budden when I was younger, and lyrically, like, a lot of these newer listeners out here, the Gen Z listeners, they don't really know too much of Joe Budden outside of the Joe Budden podcast. But back in this time when and I'm pretty sure even now, if you wanted to, like, he was no slouch on that microphone, man. He was easily top 10 in the era that I came up with. You know, he was easily top 10. Like, just his wordplay and metaphors that he just had and punchlines is just like, you know, otherworldly. I remember a long time ago, I forgot the name of the mixtape, but it was a Joe Budden versus Joel Santana. I'm like, this is not even a fair matchup. Like, I love Joel's all day. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, it's not a fair matchup. Joel's can hold his own, but I'm like, yo, compared to this man, you know, he would have been better suited at that time. He would have been better suited going against somebody like, let me see, because back in that time, like, I think he would have been better suited going against somebody like Jadakiss at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They wanted to make a mixtape versing people back then. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, he was definitely easily top 10 in his era.
Yeah. And a lot of that podcasting that we see going on now, like, you know, people know him from the Joe Budden podcast and everything else. But when he did that Spotify deal, man, he broke the mold.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For how somebody can actually get a podcast. And if you follow what he does, see, he's a joker right now. Like, that's what I don't like about him. He pretends, and I know why he does it, but it irritates the shit out of me. He pretends that he doesn't know much about the business now in his content, just so he can, like, you know, be jokey joke and get these other people on his podcast and all of that and everything. Let me tell you something right now. The way that he finessed that Spotify deal was genius.
Oh, yeah,
and the reason why he was able to do that, and the reason why he was able to do that is because of his knowledge of getting fucked over in the business. I peeped it. Like, the second that he was kind of a test subject for a lot of different things in the music business. Like, you know, he was a test subject for that one hit wonder type of shit with Def Jam and everything, you know, Pump It Up and all of that. Whenever that song gets played, he still don't get paid for it. You know what I mean? So every NBA game you hear, like, that song, pump it up in the background.
A lot of people, like, just know him for that one record. Yeah,
you know, and that's a shame because that was a weak record compared to what
he's known for. Yeah,
you know. But, like, he was a test subject for a lot of different things, including the digital record deal, like including getting signed. I remember he signed to Amalgam Records, and he got fucked over with that deal too. And, like, you know, he learned from that, and then he went on from that. And I think a lot of the reason why he's not rapping now is because there's no money in it, right?
Yeah.
And if I can't speak for him, but I kind of feel it. Like, I know that he's been burnt by the music business so many damn times that getting behind that mic is kind of like, you know, it's one of them things that just reminds you of everything you've been through in the game. And yeah, he could probably get behind the mic and still go, even at his age. And he could probably now sell more records than he ever did because he's bigger than he ever was when he was an artist, which is a shame. But, like, you know, it just brings you back to that time, like, you know what I mean, where that was your dream and that was what you wanted to do. And then when you do it now, like, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like you're receiving fake flowers from it. Like, you know what I mean? Because now you're getting that attention because you were doing content. So it's kind of a catch-22, but he did open up a lot of doors for the podcasting thing. Joe Rogan wouldn't have been able to get into podcasting and get that bag if Joe Budden didn't open up that door with Spotify.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I mean, like they're not realizing how much that he contributed.
He contributed, right. What I was going to say was, like, I'm not sure if you may have watched it, but it was a podcast episode that he did recently, like at the end of 2020, where he was announcing the fact that he was leaving Spotify. Now, how much of that was just, you know, him getting into character for the sake of the podcast or whatever? But he addressed some things that Charlamagne the God has said about him, about not knowing how to negotiate his worth and all that stuff. He made some very valid points within that argument, whether that rant was real or whether or not, you know, he was telling the truth 100% throughout the whole entire rant. But he said some things that pretty much stuck with me. And it's like, people out there that are chasing this illusion that thinking that being signed to a deal is going to elevate you, and it probably will. You know, I've never been in a situation where, you know, like, somebody, like, any real opportunities came my way, like, as far as, like, you know, like a big time deal, like, you know, like a Warner deal or a Sony deal or a Spotify deal or anything like that. None of those never came across my platform. You know, only thing that I ever had was, like, you know, other, like, networks that was looking to get me on their network to rip me off or whatever the case may be. But I've had a lot of people come my way. But the thing he said to me that resonated the most with me is the pride of ownership part, like that. And he's like, you know, Charlamagne, you work for a corporation. You've been there for however many years. And we just seen it now where he just finally got into a position of partnership with iHeartMedia and all that stuff like that. So the pride of ownership, people out there that are signed to contracts and all that stuff, you can't have that same argument with us because we're not speaking the same. Everything that we do pertaining to our platforms come from out of our pocket. We finance that, so you can't have that same conversation with me if you're financially backed by a corporation or an entity compared to me having that conversation with somebody that knows what I'm going through, because at the end of the day, everything is coming off of the strength of their muscle. So at the end of the day, I felt that, what he said,
Yeah.
And that's something that sticks with me.
Also, what he did was, it was perfect because he signed a limited deal at first, and he bet on himself. He knew, and it wouldn't have worked if he would have failed, but he bet on himself. Whereas though, he only had like a 2-year deal or something, and they, of course, because of the success, they wanted to re-up the deal, but he didn't re-up the deal. He used the system against itself. And I know how he knew how to do that. It was because he was ripped off so much by the music business that he was able to finesse that deal. He was able to get into a different compartment of the entertainment business that was on its way up with the podcasting, and he finessed the executives. And I know that felt good for him, because it would feel good if I ever did it. You know what I mean? I can kind of put myself in his shoes, because it would feel good if I ever did that. You know what I mean? Because I would know how to finesse the executives too. And I seen what he did. He got the Spotify deal. He got all of the the accolades from that, and then he carried it over into now he owns his own network, right? You know what I'm saying? So he used the Spotify deal to cake up and get that bag to be able to get his own network. The goal was ownership. It wasn't to be part of a corporate entity. It was ownership. And that's something a lot of us creatives, artists, content creators, whatever, that's a goal that a lot of us don't obtain. So shout out to him for being able to do that. I wish that he was less annoying, a lot of times, you know what I mean, with his content, with the stupid ass fedoras and the rest of it.
I mean, I don't know if you watch any recent episodes. He don't wear the fedora anymore. He kind of rocks just the snapback, tilted backwards and everything, and he's still annoying, but at the same time, like I said, I still fucks with Joe. You know what I mean? I give him his flowers for the things he do. I may not agree with him in every sense of agreeing with him when it comes to various topics and everything like that. His experience is different from mine, but at the same time, for what he did and was able to, capitalize off of the opportunity that he was given for a long run that he's, aiming for right now, I definitely do applaud him from that, so definitely shout out to Joe Biden for that, man.
Yeah. And that brings to the larger discussion with iHeart Radio and iHeart Media. They're in such bad straits right now. Their whole business model is just falling apart, that now they've separated iHeart Radio from iHeart Media to the point that, because what happened was their whole net income went down 95% in the fourth quarter. And Bob Pittman and Rich Bressler, who own iHeartMedia, they wasn't going to continue to let that happen, because I know what they're trying to do. And you can mark my words on this. iHeartMedia will be sold to a streaming service as that entity. That's why they're trying to build that up. That's why they've targeted a lot of urban content creators. That's the word that they use, but really they mean black. That's what they've, and I've noticed a lot of people that I know, they're like,
look, they got Charlamagne right out in front trying to recruit.
Yeah because they know that's the target demo that makes the most in advertising money, right? So they can get if they get what they call urban quote podcasting, and they can get those time slots in that, what they can do from there, corporations like McDonald's, like a lot of the big money corporations that you can get ads, mostly that are going to be feeding your kids poison, and you know what I'm saying, much. all of the rich devilish type of corporations, they like to have their advertising into the urban markets. It's that way with Urban One too. Urban One Radio, I used to work for them. Shout out to Kobe. But you know what I mean? Used to work. How's that working out for you, Kobe? But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, they couldn't be in a worse place. Like Urban One couldn't be in a worse place right now. They finna go bankrupt. And you know, iHeartRadio. So you have Radio One, Urban One, and then you have iHeart. And that's pretty much what's left of FM, and there's not much left of that because everything is syndicated.
But see, it's going to go back to what you said, you know, your predictions that you made throughout your time doing The Beat Goes In. You should bring that back, by the way, you know, even if you do like maybe like 20 minutes of just, you know, talking about music business shit. I mean, it's still a lot of knowledge to share and obtain to speak with you know, all your experience. But
yeah, word, I thought about that.
Yeah, you know, but going back to one of your predictions about, you know, FM and the evident fall or the inevitable fall of FM radio and everything like that, you know, you're starting to see a lot of these stations get digital now. You know, they're starting to do a lot of this crossing over and stuff like that. You know, that's why, you know, I try to, you know, because I sit there and I watch things too. I mean, my studies of it is not as deep as yours because you're somebody that's worked in actual broadcasting. Me, this is just all birthed from a thought that became a vision that turned into a plan and just got manifested into what we see now. But you somebody that actually been behind the curtain as far as broadcasting goes, so you know how things work, how the way things move. But me, I kind of sit back and from our discussions that we have off record, and then also from, you know, me just paying attention to the landscape of the way things is going right now and everything, like they eventually are going to try to come over to the digital realm and try to turn it into the next FM thing. But see, a lot of people that are here already, they're not willing to work together. They're not willing to, you know, listen to ideas that help, you know, keep them solidified in the place that they are right now before, you know, FM do got the chance to completely transition over to digital, you know. And I stress that a lot to a lot of people out there that's listening right now, even anybody that's a platform owner. Like, yo, like, listen to some of us that are on the ground that is doing these things that helped us obtain a level of success, you know what I'm saying, and implement that into, you know, what you got going on now. Because once these people come over, you know, they're gonna bring their listening, they're gonna bring their, you know, their base over with them, and the little guys like us, eventually we're gonna get squeezed out. So if we start putting things in place now, then, you know, they're gonna have a tougher time of it. But at the same time, like, on the independent level, man, it's just like, you know, people are reluctant to work together, and that's something that always, you know, has been much of a bother to me. Like, at the earlier days of things I was doing, you know, there was more of a willingness then to work with people because we used to share records and everything. We used to pass things around and give people word about what side or whatever the case may be. But now everybody's so pressed to be number one that nobody's really in the mindset of bringing each other up. So it's always just, you know, constant competition. But there's some things that can be done right now and that before the switch happens, you know what I mean, that can solidify us. But, you know, it's up to the people to want to do that. You know, what's your thoughts?
And I can speak on that too, because, you know, at the end of the day, what you just said is true. The independent platforms that are on the digital space now, maybe you own your own network, maybe you're a platform that's on another network or what have you, it's really good to build with each other and to make sure that you strengthen each other's platforms. Don't copy off each other. Make sure that you strengthen each other's platforms and build and work together, because as much as the myth was that, you know, Power 105 and Hot 97 was beefing and all of that, I can tell you all of that was a myth. Straight from the door, I can tell you that was a myth because I worked in broadcasting, right? Like, I know all of the ins and outs behind that shit. They used to call each other, the program directors, in the morning, and they used to ask who each other was having on as guests and what songs they would be playing and different other things, and they coordinate with each other, right? So, like, what people don't understand about FM, and nobody will tell you this. Nobody right now, I have people that I know that are hearing me say this and they're like, shut up. Like, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of people won't tell you this, but FM radio, like, you know what I mean? They worked together. Like, a lot of different radio stations would help each other out as much as we could. We were under, as creatives, like, you know, if there was a DJ that had a certain time slot, like, you know, a program director that had a certain time slot or whatever, they were at the just mercy of the station owner. Most station owners they had their heads up their ass. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the station owners themselves, they were terrible. Like, you know what I mean? In FM, the station owners are the problem. It wasn't when you hear the same songs being played all, like, you know, all day, every day, the same 3 songs, that wasn't the DJ's fault. Like, that wasn't necessarily the DJ's fault. But they could have spoke up more, but they needed their job, right? So they could only do but so much. The station owners decided to go along with the talent agencies, WME, now WME, IMG, and CAA. Those are the 2 major talent agencies. If you're not part of that, that's the secret society of the business, the whole entertainment business, right? Like, you know, anybody that you know of that's famous, it doesn't matter if they're an athlete, a talk show host, a musician, whatever they are, they're part of one of those 2 talent agencies. So, like, you know what I mean? We had to sign checks over to them. They had to basically, like, you know, they paid for certain time slots and it would be the same 3 songs here. Like, you know what I'm saying? There was nothing that we could do on that note. But what we could do was try to call each other, like, you know what I mean, and give each other advice and kind of stick together, right? Because we was all in it. We would all be having a bad station owner all at the same time. So, like, you know, I would have to go work at a different station every once in a while. And when I would go over there, I'd be hearing the horror stories of what that station owner is doing over at Power 99, like, you know what I'm saying, or this or that. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's one of them things where what helped FM stay together as long as it did was the solidarity. Even though a lot of people think that the FM stations was constantly beefing, that's really not what was happening. Like, you know what I mean? Because you wouldn't affect each other's local market for the most part, right? Like, now everything is international with the digital thing. Everyone's competition with each other. So the independent platforms might look at it like, well, why would I work with my competition? But you shouldn't really think of it like that, because if you have your own niche, and then you're not going to be competition with each other. The people that are coming over now from FM that I did predict on The Beat Goes In that would happen, like right now, they're bringing over the same format that they brought over from FM. They're bringing the same format over to, like, you know, TuneIn app and all of that. And it's going to fail. Like, you know what I mean? That format is going to fail eventually. And when it does, like, you could be there still having the quality content. Like, you know, they're bringing over, they're trying to get the talent agencies to buy in the radio slots over there and to buy blocks and everything else and to get the big name advertisers over there. But I mean, shit, it is what it is, dog. Like, at the end of the day, if the people don't recognize that they need to bring something different to the game, and then what's going to happen is you're going to get boxed out. And then if you don't have the patience to sit through it while you getting boxed out by the big corporations and everything, and then your platform's gonna fail too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I always tell people, man, you got to be interesting, man. You have to have your own niche. You have to bring something that somebody else isn't doing.
Oh yeah, you know,
right? Because, like, you know,
it was a couple of it was a platform I was on, you know, years ago, and it was like one of the first platforms that I ever linked up with. And I remember I used a strategy that helped them. Like, I got set a record for the number of plays that they got. And basically what it was, because like my show, like, you know, wasn't censored or anything. And you know, all the music that I got wasn't censored at all. So like, because, you know, the station itself was primarily a gospel station, they put my show on at midnights because their listenership wasn't that high anyway. So it felt like, you know, okay, we can play this at this slot because, you know, we're not having to worry about, you know, losing any kind of, like, you know, advertising or anything like that, because, you know, most people aren't tuned in at midnight. So yeah, they put me on that. They put me on that midnight. I'm like, all right, cool. Watch me build this particular time slot and watch what happens. So he put me on there, and my show started, you know, getting like, you know, hundreds and stuff like that, like maybe like 100 listeners and then maybe 300. So I'm like, boom. I had a episode where I had Hellraiser on. I had an interview with him. So I had it set up where I will play, because I remember this was when I was coming on every Wednesday at 9:00 on SoundCloud. I will, you know, release from that point and then everything else would just filter out from there. So like, I will put the show out there. I put a show out, at the 9 o'clock slot on my SoundCloud. But I was also advertising it on Twitter, and I was telling people, I got Hellraiser from, blah, 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 Sons of Men and everything, coming on. He's going to be my guest this week. And I had him do a little promo drop and everything like that for it, and I was airing that like a month in advance before I decided to actually go ahead and put it out. So I was airing it a month in advance. And then I was also promoting it. He was promoting it. And then on top of that, I put like little snippets of the interview throughout various shows that I was doing leading up to that, talking about the fact that he had an aneurysm and how was life after Wu-Tang and all that stuff like that and all that stuff. So it was drawing interest. So now comes 12 o'clock, boom, the station owner, he's listening to it and he's watching the numbers, and the numbers jump from 100 to damn near 1,000 listens in an hour. And he was like, he texted me, he's like, you just set a record for the midnight slot. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's what I be telling people out there, like, if you got people within your network that is creative or they know how to market certain things, like take advantage of that, especially with the way things is turning in this whole digital space. You're going to need some creative people out there, leading the charge for you. You can't just, follow one format and think that is going to work. You got to always be willing to adjust on the fly your business model, because if it's not working and you keep trying to do the same thing, then that's a form of insanity, doing the same thing thinking that you're going to get a different result. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, take advantage of it and don't be afraid to work with each other, because at the end of the day, you never know, like you're partnering up with somebody or just working with somebody could lead to bigger opportunities for you both. So, you just, that's just my take on it. What you think?
Yeah, and one thing that I want to touch on too, to add on to that, is a lot of people that are coming over right now to the digital space, like, from the major FM stations and different things like that, they're seeing what people like me, people like you are doing and all of that. I really have right now people that are just straight up trying to copy my podcast, right? Like, you know what I mean? People that are just straight up trying to copy exactly what I do, but like, a diet woke version of what I'm doing. Like, they can't really do what I do because they have too many advertisers on there. So at the end of the day, like, they're just trying to do like a diet woke version of what I'm doing, and it's not coming out right. It don't even sound right. But like a lot of them, like I was having this debate with one of my peoples earlier, like, and this dickhead that I used to work with at the station, he owns one of these, like, digital radio stations that came over from FM. And he was trying to tell one of my peoples that I used to work with in the business and shit. He was saying like, the key is to stay constant, because that's the consistency that people want, is to just have it constantly in their face. I could not disagree with that more, man. Like, honestly, because I could not disagree with that. Being constant. Okay, so like being consistent and being constant, there's a difference between that. Like, you can have a consistency of quality, right? Like, that's what you want. You want people to consistently be interested in what you're doing. And if you're constantly out there, if you want to drop a podcast every day of the week, that's your own prerogative. That's up to you. That's what you want to do, then go ahead. But what that tells the average listener subconsciously, like a lot of people, like to me, it just tells me that you don't care about your own product. But to the people who like are just regular type of listeners, what it's telling them is subconsciously, it's giving them the same message. You don't really care about putting out quality. You just care about constantly being out. So why do I have to tune in every time that you're dropping something, since you're always dropping something? Why do I have to always tune in then? Since you're always going to be there, I can miss some episodes, right? That's like
an aspect of the microwave mentality that we see right now. They think that you got to put out a new song every week or a new song every day. You don't need to put out an episode every day. Like if you, like you said, there's a difference in being constant and consistent. Like you can be consistent. Like if your schedule is to drop, a episode every week at this particular day and time, that's your level of consistency. But putting it out there all the time, that kind of waters down the value of your content. So after a while, that doesn't give people an incentive because they're going to keep hearing the same thing over and over eventually. Or they're like, oh, he just came out with this one yesterday, and now he's coming out with this one. Like, man, like, it's too much. You know what I'm saying? So, like, at the end of the day, like, you got to know how to be consistent, but you also got to know how to do your thing being constant as well. But being out every day, you know, that's not something that, you know, especially people that are, you know, in the beginning need to focus on. What you need to focus on is just building the quality, so that way your platform can be in demand. Because, like you said, if you just keep throwing out constant episodes after episodes after episode and it's easily accessible, then the value of it is going to go down. So at the end of the day, like, if you limit the amount of time that you put out shows and episodes and stuff like that of that nature and make it where it's not as easily accessible, then the value goes up. So,
yeah, it does. Because, you know, I try my best to come out every week, but there's even weeks where I'll miss, right? And then when you miss a week and then you get hit up by longtime listeners like, yo, did I miss an episode? And then you know that you're doing your job, right? Then you know that, like, you know what I'm saying, that you're in that kind of demand where people really missed, by the definition of word miss, like, they missed it. They wanted to hear it and it wasn't out that week. And then they were like, oh man, like, you didn't stop making it, right? That's the kind of shit. And then you assure them, nah, man, I'll be back next week. I was just, you know, busy, hectic life, things going on, right? But then at the end of the day, like, that's what you want. You want people to miss you, right? You want people to be able to listen to what you got. Every time I do a podcast, I try to make it like of a subject matter. I try to cover something, and then I try to do it in my own way. And then I try to dive into a subject as much as I possibly can, dissect it. And then come the next week, I'll do the same thing, right? But if I did that every single day, and then people are going to be like, well, I'll miss a few then. Like, you know what I mean? I'll miss a few and then I'll just catch up whenever. And then what ends up happening is they won't catch up eventually. And then forget about you. Distracted. Yeah, they get distracted by more easily accessible mediums that are promoted by, you know, big corporate entities, and then they'll just end up listening to that instead. You want to be something where somebody's like, yo, where can I catch that at? Where can I catch that podcast at? Where can I catch that radio show at? It's the same thing you want to do if, like, you know, you're making music right now too, like, you know. And before we get out of here, I just want to address the creativity with artists too. Like, you know, you definitely, and right now I'm back to dealing with artists again. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing what I can, trying to help artists get to where they need to be. Right now, a lot of money is being made in source music with film and TV. So, you know, that's an avenue that a lot of artists don't really know about. And if I were to be doing the Beat Goes In right now, what I would try to advise artists to do is get in contact with project managers or find someone like myself that can get in contact with project managers for, you know, movies, TV, film, that kind of thing, and to get your music out there. Because even with all the changes that happened with the pandemic and all of that kind of shit, it's still, there's ways that you can get your music out there and still be independent, but still reach a lot of people and grow your brand and everything. But, like, you know, I just stay creative in the process. A lot of people have just accepted the fact that we live in a microwave generation. Like, this new generation is just wants everything, like, you know, 1.5 minute songs. They want a new song every other day. Like, you know what I mean? And what people don't realize, me and you was talking about this earlier off the record, but, like, you know what I mean? Things do come back in cycles. What you want to do is, you don't want to be part of a cycle. You want to be ahead of the cycle. You want to be thinking ahead. Like, even with content, I try to do that. I try to think ahead of the curve, right? You don't want to be on the curve. You want to be ahead of it. So, like, you know, you want to always be creative with what you're doing. And right now, if you're rapping especially, because there's nothing less valuable than being a rapper. right now. And that's just the complete, I would say that if I was doing the beat goes in. You know what I mean? I would say that.
Though, like there really is no money in the music business right now. Like people can't go out there and perform. People can't go to the studio. People can't do these things that they was able to do before. You know what I'm saying? Then even before that, the money was starting to dry up. So the money is definitely not there now. So you got to find another avenue. That's just being real. Yeah. And anybody out there that says otherwise, then I know you're lying, because at the same time, there's been people that have been in the music business and they say the same thing. So I'm not going to sit there and argue with somebody that's been there and experienced it and lived it, thinking that they just trying to stop people from getting money. That's just the truth. Like there really is no money in the music business right now,
Yeah. Yeah, and see, before the pandemic, they had already, the music business executives have dried up the lane for hip hop, right? Yeah. They pretty much took control of that. They made it a genre, not a culture, right? Once they did that and effectively made hip hop a genre as opposed to a culture, then they were able to control the Billboard charts. They were able to control the lanes and the avenues that an artist could do to get to the Billboard by rapping, right? When we was coming up, like you're only a few years younger than me, when we was younger, like artists, they actually had a way to independently get from A to B. Like you were saying, what Wu-Tang did was exactly that. They was local, like Babito, like, you know what I mean, played them, all of that kind of shit happened, and boom, 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 one thing led to another. But before you know it, they on every major outlet, BET, MTV, like, you know what I'm saying?
Doing fucking shows in Hawaii to like 50 million people, just exaggeration, but still like large crowds and shit,
Yeah, and that lane was available for rappers at that time. That's why I was heavily trying to go from being, there wasn't an independent scene when I was younger. That was the independent scene, was you need to do what you got to do. To grow, to be on a major label. Like, but now the major label thing, like, that's a thing of the past. People really, I think collectively, that's a good thing that this generation understands, is that labels equals bad. Like, I think that for the most part has gotten out there, the news about 360 deals and everything like that. But I think that people misunderstand what being an independent artist means too. I think that people really they misunderstand what you need to do to still be noticed. It doesn't mean that you shun all the different things that would get you an opportunity.
See, but with that being said, like people, like especially a lot of these artists now, they're more intrigued and fascinated by the appearance of the lifestyle, more so than the hard work that comes along with actually being successful. They think go ahead and flash wads of money and hold it up to your ear looking ridiculous, and this whole gang shit, and fucking, just portraying a lifestyle. They think that's the equivalent to success. They don't really want the real success because they don't want to put the real hard work into doing it. There are some out there that actually do put the hard work in, but a lot of these up and coming rappers, they see what other people are doing. They try to emulate that, and they don't realize that there's a lot more to it than just, jumping in front of IG cameras and taking a pic for the gram, holding a couple $1,000 or whatever the case may be. There's a lot more to it, like that's all cool and everything, because we're in the generation now where everything is more about what's appealing to the eye than more so than in the ear and everything. So that's okay. But at the same time, there's a lot more to it if you want that longevity to remain successful. You know what I'm saying? That's why a lot of these people, they don't last that long in the industry. They get one hot song. The next thing you know it, their memory, that one hot song is going out the door with them. Believe it or not, Lil Nas X, he's on his way out the door. People can say contrary.
Yo, he's on his way out. Yeah, he's gonna be with Mona Scott soon, because he's got some industry debt now. Like, that's how it is. A lot of people think that because they holding up the money and they in the cars and all that's what they own. They don't own that money. They borrowed that money, they borrowed that car. And in most cases, in almost all cases, these major artists don't even own their own cars. They don't own their own places. The mansions that they got, they're borrowed mansions, right? Like, their name is not on the house. Their name isn't on the car.
I remember there was a time back in 2013 where you could actually walk into a corner store and buy a stack of fake money for $10. You know, it used to be a time where you could do that. And the money looked real. And people used to do that shit all the time. So, you know.
Yeah, and just the idea that is ridiculous, that there would be a such thing. That means that there was a fucking demand for it. You know what I mean? Like, to be fake, right? Like, you know what I mean? And that's all that. And that's like, that has replaced creativity, and that's what I want to instill back into the artists these days is, like, you know, be creative in what you're doing, because that's going to be what they're going to end up marketing again. There will be a market for creativity. So if you're creative now and you're not just doing what everybody, aside from what everyone else that has never spent a day in the music business will tell you, like, you know what I mean? Being creative right now is the best move. A lot of people tell you, don't do that. It don't matter if your song is good or not, because that's not what people are doing right now and everything. But those people that are saying that have never spent a day in the fucking business. They don't know what they're talking about. It's going to come back around, and you want to be that person who has, okay, so maybe it was a couple years, but now you have a catalog of music that you can go back to. You have a catalog of different things you can go back to where it's real good creative music. Whether you're a singer, rapper, I don't care if you make rock music, whatever you're doing, like, you know what I mean, as an artist. And in the meantime, if you can put yourself out there as a personality, that's even better. Like, you know what I mean? Don't just be an artist. There's no market for someone who is just an artist now. Like you just said, Lil Nas X on his way out. Can you imagine if we got to know him a little bit better, as opposed to just now he's the little, like, you know, excuse my language, but the little gay kid who like came out as gay and now he's stuck to a bad record deal. Like, that's really what, I mean, that's all I know
right now.
about
He's
him.
just a tabloid
like,
sensation, you know what I mean? Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a shame. Like, you know what I mean? And there's gonna, like, and then you got the other dickhead that put the fucking gem in his forehead. Like, I don't know.
Lil Uzi Vert.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, I mean, come on, man. Like, you know, it's hit the point now. All of the generation of the littles and all of that, I think that they put the pedal to the metal. You can only rev an engine for so long until you burn that engine out, right? With that whole, like, you know, microwave mentality, like, you know, shitty music, like, you know, promoting just the worst possible case, fastest music you can put out, overproduced nonsense. They put the pedal to the metal with that far too long. That engine, if it hasn't burnt out already, it's going too soon. You want to be ahead of that. And then what's going to happen is the label execs are going to act like they're the ones that are the ones, like, you know, dictating that, when really it's the demand. It's the demand. We've had the bullshit for too long. People are going to want the real music back. People are going to want to get to know the artist more and everything like that, because, you know, we might not have had all the media when we was younger, but we felt like we had a good idea of who, like, you know, some of these rappers were, because we seen them on the big networks. Like, we seen them in interviews and different things. Like, we felt like we got to know them. If you update that to now, and you don't need BET or MTV to interview you. You can just do what we doing right now. Get yourself out there, like, you know, make people get to know you and put out some content, put out some music, like, you know what I mean? And keep that going, like, and stop fucking with the wrong people too. Like, watch.
Well, two things that I wanted to say, wanted to highlight basically is that if 2020 taught us anything, or showed us anything, was people are starting to want to hear, you know, music with the meaning or with the message, from everything that was happening with CV to everything that was happening with, you know, BLM and all these other situations that was going on. People was more so gravitating to music that had a message and a meaning behind it, more so than the bullshit, because, you know, people wasn't in the clubs in 2020. So at the end of the day, people was more so opening their ears back up to conscious, more so conscious music. You know what I'm saying? So we have seen, like, especially in 2020, some very good projects come of age from that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's one good thing that came out of 2020. And also to touch on a little bit more of what you were saying, like, you know, like, we do want to get to know the person behind the music, the man, the woman behind the music that we listen to. But we don't want to hit on and sounding all uneducated and fucking full of themselves either. Like, we want to hear people that really have a real genuine story, not the same cliche bullshit. Yeah, I was from the hood, and even though I know a lot of people's story is that, but like, I want to hear something more genuine. I don't want to hear the same shit. I had to get it from the mud, yo. Like, my mom's ain't had shit, my daddy wasn't dead, this, that, and the third. Even though, I'm not down talking or downplaying none of that, because a lot of people really do have that same experience and stuff like that. But a lot of people that you're hearing now, it's the same experience. I had no other thing to turn to, so I had to turn to the streets. I wasn't getting no love at home. The cliche shit. You know? Like, what makes a lot of these...
we've been hearing that for decades.
Like, the stories like 50 Cent, like, these people right there that, make them unique is because their stories were pretty much the same, but their presence, their aura is what made people gravitate to it once they heard their story. Like, we knew for a fact that everything 50 Cent was rapping about was something that he has did, and there's people that I know that grew up with him that will vouch for that. So at the end of the day, that makes the aura that much more believable. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have some of these other people, that makes them believable because they got people that can actually vouch for that. But you got people like Slim Jesus to just come along and just talk about, like, my situation is this. Then you catch them on an interview when they actually have to be themselves and they tell you, oh, that's not me. Like, I just like to rap about it because the shit's cool. You know what I'm saying? So,
that's crazy. Brought up Slim Jesus, it just reminded me of the other day on Twitter with the white rapper thing, man. People have to stop right now with all of these, like, trendy, different fucking things like that, man. Just be yourself. It don't matter if you're white. It don't matter if you're whatever, man. I don't care. But, like, you know what I mean? If you're marketing yourself, I'm going to say this right now to all the white MCs. If you're marketing yourself as a white MC, if that's what you're marketing yourself as, do not. It has nothing to do with CV either. Don't get within 6 feet of me if you don't want to get smacked in your mouth, man. For real. Like, you know what I mean? Because people like me went to the cross for that. Like, metaphorically, we went to the cross, like, because I was from the previous generation and they tried to do that shit with me. And that's one of the main pinnacle reasons why I never came out, was because they kept trying to figure out a way to make me the next white something. Like, first they wanted me to be the next Marshall. Then they was like, oh, how about this? What if you're the conscious white rapper? I'm like, how about you just stop taking the word white? Like, you know what I mean? Stop putting that in there. Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I'm an MC, right? So I just wanted to get taken seriously as an artist. The second you start calling yourself the white something, like, you know what I mean? That's come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Take the wave cap off and stop being fake. Stop being fake. I'll smack that shit off your head. I'll smack that shit off your head, man. Get out of here with that. Like, and stop rapping like Eminem. Like, stop rapping like Eminem. You don't know what got Eminem the way in the position that he was in. Like, he came from a very prominent bloodline, and he had a lot of different things that panned out.
And also, like, not to be misconstrued by people out there that's listening to me, because, like I said, I know that there are people, that come from unfortunate situations. I get that. But at the same time, like, what I'm basically trying to say is, I want to hear, I don't want to try to get to know an artist and they sound basically the same as the last artist I listened to an interview. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, be unique in your situation is basically what I'm trying to say. Like, everybody got a story, yes, but everybody's story is different. I don't believe that half of these people out there were really out there with the stick or with the pole or whatever poles or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I don't believe that a lot of these people was really out there on the block and doing the things they was doing, no. If you was a fucking nerd and you just happen to know how to rap real good or whatever the case may be, fine. If your story is unique, I'm going to listen to it. But, like, after a while, it's just like you just kind of get uninterested in hearing the same cliche ghetto stories all the time. And it's not to knock at anybody that does come from that fucking situation, because I come from it too, but I don't always sit there and talk about it because that's not something I glorify. I talk about the things that got me through situations that, could have been detrimental to me. Everybody, like you said, everybody got to cross the bear. So my situation is different from yours. We came up in the same circumstances, but my situation was different. So I want to tell that story. I want to talk about, trying to sound like everybody else and try to seem like I was the hardest motherfucker out there on the block, because I wasn't. That wasn't never me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
ironically, a lot of the same people that started all of that, like, even before the generation with 50, like the people that, and I'm not naming names, I'm not going to, that's bad. That's bad business. I'm not going to, I could personally name names right now from people I met when I was letting them up in the radio station and broadcasting and all of that type of shit. But a lot of these people who claim the street life and all of that from the previous era of rap, they didn't live like that. And if they didn't at all live like that, because I could tell, and I know because I came from the hood, I could tell you, you know what I mean? And just seeing how some of them acted and getting the backstories from some of them, a lot of that shit was all a mirage. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of people who would just talk that tough talk,
studio gangsters,
and do all of that, they didn't really live that life. And a lot of them came out, and to his credit, Dr. Dre came out, finally admitted that he didn't grow up living that life.
But that was portrayed in the movie too.
Started that gangster rap.
Like everybody knew Dr. Dre didn't grow up like that. He grew up around the situation, but this is what he was forced to be because of the situation he was in. He was with NWA, so he had to portray that situation. Like what a lot of these artists out here, like they have to portray that situation because that's what their label or their contract stipulation said that they got to talk about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. And right now, I feel like the music business is rebooting. Yeah. I said that before in the beginning of the year, last year, 2020. I said it's in a reboot. So we're going to have to be patient to see exactly how this whole thing reshapes and reforms. Right now, the content game is doing the same thing. Because people act like now podcasts are just now coming out. Podcasts been around damn near 20 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, podcasts been around a long ass
this ain't
time.
Nothing, no.
They're just now starting to get a little prominence and shit. But at the same time, you know, there's cycles with everything, like, you know, and it's right now, I don't know how for sure the whole thing of how the music business is going to reboot, but I do know that when you look around you, just be smart. Look at the different mediums that we still have right now, the phones, like every screen that you got and all of that. How can you keep yourself on that somehow?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? What can you do to keep yourself in and around something to do with that, right? Like, you know, that's why I encourage artists to seek out source music. And I'll keep beating that drum, like, you know what I mean? And the artists who end up signing on with me and taking me up on that, I'll show, and then they get the bag and then they see the proof. Like, you know what I mean? That's a good avenue to get, because they can't, especially right now, these production companies that are running movies and TV and film, especially independent movies and such, they can't afford that Beyonce song. They can't afford like all the mainstream, like, you know, like they can't buy a song off of Interscope or Universal or something like that, or Sony. They can't afford that shit. So, like, you know, they throw a few stacks to an independent artist, and it changes the game.
Shout out to Tamara Bubble. Because, like, you know, I say shout out to her because I just recently had her on my show, and like for a third time, and like from where she was when I first had her to where she is now, like her music is making appearances in movies and stuff like that. Like her recent placement was in the new movie Raya and the Last Dragon, which is a Disney Plus movie that's in theaters. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, seeing her, you know, go through it as an independent, like solely independent, doing everything on her own and everything like that, and scoring these big placements shows that it's possible. And then you got all of these other, like, you know, long-standing artists that's been in the game for years, like decades or whatever, that's selling off their, you know, copyrights and their publishing and stuff like that. Like, this is reopening the lane for a lot of people to get out there and do different things. So, like, I'm optimistic about the business. I feel as though like things are going to turn around, and then, you know, it'll get back to being where, you know, now it's going to be more so relying on your talent than just, you know, trying to follow a trend. I feel as though that time is coming back, and hopefully it's coming back sooner rather than later, but it remains to be seen, man. But definitely shout out to the independents out there that are scoring those placements in movies and other, you know, sources of, you know, entertainment where, you know, their music can be used for that.
Yeah. And lastly, just a little quick other bit of advice I would have said if I was still doing my music business segment is get rid of them managers, man. You don't need them. Not now. You don't need them. And I say that because, like, you know, to be in 2021 with a manager, you're anchoring yourself. You're anchoring yourself. There's nothing that manager can do that you can't do if you just tried harder. Like, you know what I mean? If you took your own shit more seriously, you could do anything that manager. Now, when it comes to agents and when you get to a certain degree, then you need them and you need the lawyers and all of that for the contracts. And I get all that. But right now, when you just coming up, there's no reason why you need a manager, man. Like, you know, I don't know how this is going to happen with live performances going forward. I don't know if they're ever going to, like, you know, let this shit go with the pandemic or whatever, where we can fill places back up and that kind of. I hope it gets back to that because there's nothing like live performances, man.
To me, what I see right now happening is a lot of these artists is going to have to get comfortable going to smaller markets, like in states like Mississippi and Texas and Arizona, places where they're starting to reopen to 100% capacity. That's the only way, because I don't see it happening no time soon in New York and in Cali and in states like this. But, you know, states that have been opening up and has been, you know, allowing people to get back to 100% capacity for what they're doing, then yeah, those are some of the places you might want to start looking into and start booking some shows, because pretty soon, like, you'll be able to perform in those places and not having to worry about no restrictions. But at the end of the day, that's what I said on my first podcast, like, you know, just better, you know, just know the risk, but at the same time, it's trying to let people get back to work, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because there's nothing like a live performance. I want to tell that to artists right now. Like, you know what I mean? When you make your song, be ready. When you're making that song, by the time you record that song, make sure that you're ready to perform that in front of an audience. Have it memorized. Make sure that that thing is the final product. Make sure that you're able to perform that. There's nothing like that. Even if your performance is like an IG performance, like, you know what I mean? I don't know what they're doing now. They performing on Zoom. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah. Like,
I've seen some artists doing some, you know, digital performances lately. That's probably going to be the wave of the future when you know, because people are going to be too scared. And then, you know, with the technology and green screens and, you know, just video production in general, I could see that being a possibility. You know what I'm saying? Putting it behind a paywall and doing some shit like that. But at the end of the day, you know, just like you said, it still doesn't, you know, replace the energy of actually being on the stage and interacting with people. But I do see that as a viable option where people are going to start doing more so live performances in their own living rooms and shit like that, or have a dedicated space for that.
I'm sorry, man. I'm never gonna get used to that, man. I'm old school. I'm never gonna get used to that. I'm never gonna co-sign that. But I mean, if that's something that artists got to do, and then so be it. But I just want to stress that, like, because even now when I'm dealing with artists again, and I'll say this because I don't care, like, you know what I mean? Funny story before we close out the podcast. I'm dealing with an artist, right? And this artist, and the whole time I'm doing the beat goes in, I'm telling, like, you know, with the music business segment. And at that time I was working with artists daily. I was in my homie's office, like, you know what I mean? He's like, you know, he's got a big name in the industry and all of that. We got our own little imprint, like, you know, that we working. So I'm dealing with artists on a daily basis at that point. And I'm always preaching, like, to artists every day, right? And I got to sit down with independent artists. They come to me, and like, this is pre-pandemic. Like, they come to me and they don't have their copyrights done. They don't got their music registered for tracked airplay. Like, they don't even know what broadcast data systems is or media base, or they don't know what publishing means and all of that shit. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care how this pandemic changes shit. None of that has changed. You still need to understand ownership, right? Like, as you see these artists right now, as you were saying with Merc Macchiatis and Hypnosis, they selling all of their shit off. And that is a result of them having bad contracts. That's a result of learn from their mistakes. The reason why they have to sell off all of this shit that they barely own right now is because the fact that they signed bad contracts and didn't understand ownership then, right? So, like, you know, I had to sit down with artists on a daily basis, constantly preach to them about, like, you know, getting something as simple as copyrights. cause like, you know what I mean? And then, so the pandemic forced me out of that gig for a while. And then now I'm getting back into it. I'm getting back with talking to artists and everything. And this one singer comes to me and she's like, you know, I'm like, make sure you got the track ready. Like, you know what I mean? Cause I'm going to be trying to get it in Source Music somewhere. Cause I got, right now, you brought up Disney Plus. I actually got a project manager's contact from Disney Plus. Like, you know, and I got one that I always work with from Showtime. And I'm trying to work on Netflix and Hulu and the rest of it, you know, HBO Max. Right. So I'm getting some more contacts as time goes on. But I got one from Disney Plus recently. And so I'm like, yo, you know, I'm trying to get you over there with Disney Plus, present the track and all of that and make sure it's ready. Cause this is a song that, like, you know what I mean? I feel like it could have some placement there. She's like, okay. And then finally I get the song back and I check the Library of Congress. Cause what people fail to understand is you can do that, right? You just go to the, you know what I mean? Copyright.gov. Right, go to the Library of Congress and you can check to see if a song is copyright and who owns it and everything else. And she didn't do that yet. And I specifically said to do that. Now, the old me would have just then said, this is what you need to do. And I would have said it again and again and again. And then whatever. Then she was like, well, I don't want to do it. Can you do it? Normally I would have said no, but my frustration, cuz with artists not being professional is at an all-time high. Like my stress, my cortisol levels with dealing with unprofessional independent artists that fail to realize that they need to own their own shit has just hit an all-time high. So what I did was I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it for you. And so what I did was I copywrote her song and now I own it.
What your man say? Got him.
Yeah, got him. Got him. Then what I did, and then also, like I just said, I took it one step further, and then I filed for publishing with it. Like, you know what I mean? So now I own the whole thing. And now if she want her song back, she got to come to me.
Goes back,
like, you know what I mean? And
it goes back to what you said before. You need to learn the business.
Yeah. And now I'm like, see, now my point's proven. Because then when she hit me back, she was like, so what's the status on it? I'm like, oh, you mean about your song? She was like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, now I own it. Yeah. And she was like, so what is that? So what are we doing? I'm like, well, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you know what I mean? But now I have your song. Like, you know what I mean? So if you want to participate in this, right now, if you want to have this song going forward, and now I guess you need to play along with me with whatever I say, because now I own your whole shit. Like, you know what I mean? So it's one of them things, man.
I mean, fuck around and tell that story on my podcast. The real reason why I stopped doing music, like I'm thinking about it, but it's like at the end of the day, like it's not really that big of a situation, you know, because thankfully I wasn't dumb enough to sign my name anywhere. But just the way that situation played out was like, you know, I could have been a little bit smarter and dealing with the situation. But I will say to these artists out there, you know, fuck them homeboy contracts. You know what I mean? Do business the right way, because even your own homeboys or supposed homeboys will, you know, rip you off. If they feel like there's $1 in it for them, they will rip you off. And there's been a couple of occasions where shit like that has happened. So, you know, that's the main reason why I really stopped doing music. But, you know, like, should I get back into doing music? Like, I want to do it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to make sure I have ownership of everything instead of co-owning things. Like, I just have the lyrics and then this dude has the beats or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I want to be able to own my production straight out. So it's a longer road. You know, it's the longer road to it, but at the same time, it's the more necessary road, especially in this day and age where you got people that's looking to rip people off. So
yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying people can't make mistakes. Like, I made the mistake when I was younger signing a bad label deal, but you know, when I didn't also have somebody telling me what I'm saying either. Like, I didn't have somebody trying to coach me through it and trying to help me through it. Like, you know, the mistakes back then that I was making, that was all trial and error, right? I had my feet to the fire. I just had to do what I had to do. nowadays there's enough information out there, right? We have pocket gods called iPhones and Androids and the Googles and all of that. We can figure out certain things that a lot of artists back in the day couldn't figure out, that had to go through the trial and error to figure out, right? Like you can get ahead of the problems. Like you got to own your shit. Like, you know what I mean? And a lot of that goes for platform owners too. A lot of people don't realize that, like, you know, when you playing music, that sometimes that artist don't even own their own music. They don't even realize that they got a beat. They rented a beat, which is ridiculous, from a producer who didn't even clear the sample that they're using in the song or something. And then later on down the line, you stuck in the court with Spotify or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you just got to watch that shit. You got to, like you said, owning every aspect of what you do as an artist is...
Yeah, and also as a, like, as you said too, as a platform owner, owning every aspect of it is good. That's why now, like, you hear my show, like, I rarely use, like, you know, mainstream beats anymore because of the fact that I want complete ownership. Like, you know, I'm been slacking on learning and teaching myself how to make beats and everything, but, you know, that's coming. You know, and it's gonna get to the point where I'm gonna be good at it. I'm not gonna have to worry about, you know, looking for beats and instrumentals and shit like that, because everything will be solely my own shit. So that's my goal, you know.
Yeah, and a little bit of advice to the platform owners that still want to use beats, like, you know, but they want to keep their platform going and they can't learn how to make beats, or they can't learn how to make beats fast enough, but they want to keep it going. Use royalty-free beats. Shout out to Odyssey Network for helping me out with that, because that's all I do for my podcast, right? And they help me out to get me into the sync catalogs with the royalty-free music. And that's another way to go to make sure, you know, and not even Creative Commons. I'm talking straight up royalty-free, copyright-free. Like, you know what I mean? That's another way to go if you want to do that. But I will say the best thing to do is to own, create, and make, but key is to own your own shit.
Like, I mean, like, I've seen that before about, you know, royalty-free music, but I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, I guess I've probably been looking in the wrong places, but a lot of them shit has been corny. So it's like, yo, like, I'd rather just, you know, take a risk and use the commercial beat that I've been using. But it's like, no, like, at the end of the day, I don't want anybody to be able to say, oh, well, you can't play this because you got my beat on there and you didn't get my permission to use it. So at the end of the day, I want to get back to, you know, like, my original vision, which was, you know, have my own shit and top to bottom production, from beats to everything else that you see, and, you know, and including with the Nonstop Radio Show. I want everything to just be of my own ownership, because ownership is important right now, man. And it's like, a lot of people, I don't know how serious they think it is, but you try not owning what you are putting out there, and then when somebody come knocking on your door and saying that they want their reparations for the material that you use, that you didn't get allowance from them for, you know. So ownership is key, y'all.
Yeah, and for real, and take it from somebody who is still getting court notices from Spotify. I keep having to show up now after the pandemic. Now, I wouldn't say it's after the pandemic, but now that it's eased up a little bit, now they want me to get back into court. And you know what? It wasn't even nothing to do with something that I did. It was just that somebody used my copyright, because I was smart enough at some point to own my own shit. Somebody tried to do, like, you know, the unthinkable and steal my shit and upload it and get money off of my shit. And because of that, now I got to keep going to fucking court with Spotify. So just think about that. I don't even want to go, and I got to keep going. And if I don't go, I could face jail time or fines or whatever. So just imagine, like, you know what I mean? If some of these bots catch you using a sample that you shouldn't be using in your music, or if you're a platform owner, like, you know what I mean, you will end up in court. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm living proof of that.
Shit, I had Anchor take away my whole channel one time because I put something on there that they felt was copyright infringement. So they took away my whole channel. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, just for one, you know, they took my whole channel and everything like that. So, you know, it's like, at the end of the day.
And with the money being lost in the business right now, man, like, that's where a lot of people are recouping losses too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so watch that shit. So I think it's a good point to end on it with, like, you know, ownership, like, you know what I'm saying? And that's definitely key. That's something that a message that I think should resonate with all the artists and the content creators and everything. Ownership.
Shit, maybe we should do a follow-up content collaboration, you know, speaking on ownership and a little bit more, because, you know, this particular interview actually turned out to, you know, go on for a lot longer than what we have originally planned. But, you know, the vibes, every time we get together and we do content and whatever, like, it always goes on for longer than what we expected. So
yeah, I mean, shit, it is what it is, man. I want to say thank you to everybody who tunes in to all of the content collaborations that we do week to week, that tune into the Nonstop Radio Show, to Kawan J Radio, to For All Matters podcast. And before I get out of here, I want to let people know that, you know, the censorship is getting crazy right now online. I talked about that in the last podcast that we did. But at the end of the day, I lost a couple of my Twitter accounts. Like my main podcast one, they took it away from me. They're really trying to censor me right now. I'm working on it. I'm going to be on other social network platforms that don't mind free speech and that kind of thing. I'm not sure why they took away. I'm filing an appeal, trying to get my Twitter accounts back and all of that kind of shit right now. Who knows if I'll get my For All Matters podcast Twitter account back and all of that kind of shit right now. But I'm going to just let y'all know that censorship shit, man, they really trying to get motherfuckers right now, man. Like, you know, I'm kind of suspect with anybody who's still on YouTube speaking freely and, like, you know, still on Twitter speaking freely. I'm kind of looking at them like, what are you, some type of fucking agent or something? Like, how are you still able to do? Because I know I can't, you know what I mean? Like, they on my ass, like, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, thank you to everybody who's still following me right now on Divine Thought TM on Twitter. You can catch me there for right now. How much longer, I really don't know. You can also hit me up at For All Matters Podcast at gmail.com. Any questions, any feedback, all of that. And before we where can they find you?
You can definitely hit me up on Twitter at EMillio EgBar. That's my direct link. So for anybody that wants to follow me and interact, hit me up. Just don't be on no weirdo shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't pay attention to the weird shit. But at the EMillio EgBar, you can hit me up there. Or if you want to follow the show, you can hit me up on at Nonstop Radio 212. You can hit me there. Or if you want to send an email to, you know, just, you know, talk or whatever, or, you know, give your opinion about the show or whatever the case may be, or this particular interview, you can hit me up at NSR.FanMail. NSR.FanMail@gmail.com. You know, I definitely answer my emails in that area. And you can also check out the Nonstop Radio Show on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/nonstop-radio-show. And you can also check us out, like I said, every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Kawan J Radio. You can check us out Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Big Shot Radio. And you can check us out every Saturday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on theradio.com, THA radio.com.
Word up. And as we say, he said his piece, I said my piece. For everybody listening live, keep it locked.
All right, y'all. Peace.